And before I start talking of the book, just a small but genuine note of thanks. Considering all of you have come on a day when there have been other competing engagements, other book launches, seminars, and all that. So to give it priority ahead of others, I'm grateful for that. But before I was just coming here and Manisha was introducing all the panelists, Jignesh Bhavani said a very pertinent thing, though he said it in very light humor. He said, ये मुझे पॉलिटिशियन बोल के ऐसा करा जैसे मेरा लिंचिंग हो गया. Now come to think of it, just one word which goes against our mind, our psyche and what we believe in, we feel we have been lynched. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I just ask you to close your eyes for a few seconds. Spare a thought for a man sleeping in his bedroom, happy that all the Eid celebrations have passed off peacefully. He has had biryani with his neighbors, kebabs, sivaiya and everything. 2 days have lapsed and suddenly he gets a knock at his door. It's not a polite knock, it's a mob. The mob attacks his house, breaks the door open, drags him out of his bedroom, drags his son also out of the house, and kills him. That is what is lynching. And that is what we have been facing since this new political dispensation assumed power in 2014. I have referred indirectly to Akhlaq's case just now. But lynching did not begin with Akhlaq. Unfortunately, it didn't end with Akhlaq either. It started with Mohsen Sheikh, went on to Akhlaq, and Una, Hamirpur, and so many other incidents. And when Mohsen Sheikh was lynched in Pune, and particularly when Akhlaq's lynching took place in Dadri, there was a lot of human cry in the media. And at a societal level, we were all very concerned, deeply disturbed at the turn of events which our country had taken. And I remember almost every national newspaper putting the Akhlaq news in 5 columns, 6 columns on page. We were all shocked. It is something we had never heard of in our country. And this I'm speaking in a country which has experienced frequent communal riots. We have had 1984 anti-Sikh pogrom also. I won't glorify it as a communal riot. We have had 2002 also, and before the 1992, besides sundry other cases. But in all the cases, the attackers killed, looted, and scooted. Their purpose fulfilled. They just went away from the scene of crime, trying their level best not to leave any evidence behind. This was the first time with Akhlaq in particular that the people who killed, people who attacked, did not run away from the site of crime. Far from running away from the site of crime, they put up their victims' faces as trophies. I don't think many of us would have forgotten the face of Alimuddin Ansari in Jharkhand, who was killed on the city square. And just when he was about to breathe his last, the cow militia made him face the camera one last time. It was akin to how the wolves pounce upon a half-eaten deer in the jungle. With such a state of things, if we had allowed it to be buried in the columns and inside pages of the newspapers, we would not have done justice to it. Because as I said, when Akhlaq was killed, the news was carried on page 1 of almost every newspaper in the country. But last year in July, when Rakbar was killed, many newspapers in the city confined it to just a small paragraph on page 1. Many did not cover it on that day itself, they covered it later, almost as if lynching was the new normal in New India. I've done this book, and hopefully we will never have a sequel of this book. I hope our polity, our society puts the period 2014 to 2019 in the inner recesses of history from which it is never repeated. Thank you all for coming over. Really grateful to each and every individual, particularly all the august panelists over here, bringing with Mr. Prashant Bhushan, Mr. Jignesh Mawani, Professor Purvanand, Ms. Ghazala Jameel, and last but not the least, it's a cliche, but it holds water still, Mr. John Dayal. When I'll share a small anecdote from my childhood about Mr. John Dayal. When I was a little boy growing up in Delhi, I used to get 1 rupee as my weekend pocket money. And with inflation after the 1977 new government coming in, my pocket money was raised to 2 rupees every Sunday. After this, those 2 rupees, 25% was reserved for Mr. John Dayal's review in Patriot. Every Sunday I used to go and buy Patriot from the vendor because my family would not subscribe to Patriot at that time. We used to read Indian Express. So at that time probably I never thought that one day John Dayal sir will grace a book launch where I will be the author. So God is kind, He is merciful, I am fortunate. Thank you.
Can I request all the panelists to please release the book?
मैं 2 शब्द ही कहूँगा। पार्टीशन, बाबरी, 2002 के गुजरात के दंगों के बाद तहलका का वो स्टिंग ऑपरेशन जिसमें संघ और भाजपा के जाने माने नेता बाबू बजरंगी ये कहते हुए पाए गए कि दंगों के वक्त उन्होंने बहादुरी दिखाते हुए किसी प्रेग्नेंट मुस्लिम महिला के पेट में किस प्रकार से तलवार मारी। उसके बाद सोहराब, सादिक जमाल, सबीर खान पठान, इशरत के फर्जी एनकाउंटर्स, कोटा के काले कानून के तहत कंप्लीटली बेगुनाह मुस्लिम साथियों को अहमदाबाद क्राइम ब्रांच की कस्टडी में ले जाकर उल्टा घुमाकर उनके प्राइवेट पार्ट्स में करंट देना, और अब मॉब लिंचिंग की ये वारदात है। ये वो सारी वॉमिटिंग है जो 1925 से अब तक भाजपा ने जो कल्चरल फिल्थ अपने जहन में एक्यूमुलेट किया है, उसके ये सारे वॉमिटिंग की एग्जांपल्स हैं। और जैसा कि राइटर साहब ने कहा कि ये किताब लिखने का केवल एक ही तात्पर्य हो सकता है कि दूसरा किसी को इस प्रकार का, इस किस्म का किताब ना लिखना पड़े, उसकी दूसरी जिसकी कोई सिक्वल नहीं होनी चाहिए। जिस प्रकार से अखलाक और जुनैद को मारा, जिस प्रकार से उना की घटना हुई, इन सारे लिंचिंग के केसेस में एक चीज, 2 उसके बहुत प्रोमिनेंट फीचर है। एक, सारे अक्यूज्ड इतने बिंदास है, उनको सुप्रीम कॉन्फिडेंस है कि खुद वायलेंस करने के बाद अपने उस महान कृत्य को खुद या अपने अगल बगल में खड़े साथियों के द्वारा कैप्चर करवाएंगे, उसका वीडियो बनाएंगे, बेशर्मी के साथ उसको घुमाएंगे और उस बात का एक बारबेरिक ब्रेवेडो डिस्प्ले करेंगे कि देखिए हमने किस प्रकार से उस प्रेग्नेंट मुस्लिम महिला के पेट में तलवार मारी, देखिए किस प्रकार से हमने उना में दलितों का चमड़ा उधेड़ा, देखिए किस प्रकार से हमने जुनैद को ट्रेन में से फेंक दिया। और ये सिर्फ इसलिए हो रहा है कि जो राज सत्ता पर बैठे हैं, न केवल उनको शह और पनाह है, बल्कि धीरे धीरे करके 1925 से अब तक जो कल्चरल फिल्थ उन्होंने अक्यूमुलेट किया है, जिनको वॉमिट करना है दलित, आदिवासी और मुसलमानों के ऊपर, उसके लिए एक टोले को, एक मॉब को खड़ा किया जाता है। ऐसा नहीं कि अचानक कोई जगह पे दंगे हो गए और दलित मुसलमान या हिंदू मुस्लिम कहीं पे लड़ पड़े। यहां पर बकायदा एज अ पार्ट ऑफ वन डिजाइन इसको अंजाम दिया गया है और एक सोची समझी साजिश और डिजाइन के चलते ये मॉब लिंचिंग के केसेस हुए हैं। और सिर्फ ये कहकर मेरी बात को खत्म करूंगा कि इलेक्टोरली 2019 में हम सभी का प्रयास रहेगा कि ये संघी भाजपा दोबारा कभी सत्ता पर ना आए, लेकिन उसके न आने के बाद एक कल्चरल सांस्कृतिक काम हमको लेकर जो सड़कों पर उतरना है, गीतों के द्वारा, कविता के द्वारा, नुक्कड़ नाटक के द्वारा, सिनेमा के द्वारा, किताबों के जरिए और हमारे इस प्रकार के डिस्कोर्स, सेमिनार, कॉन्फ्रेंसेस और डायलॉग्स के जरिए। क्योंकि सड़क पर जो हिंदू 2002 के दंगों के वक्त तलवार लेकर निकले थे, उन सबका नाम नरेंद्र मोदी नहीं था। एक मानसिकता है जो उनको सड़क पर ले जाती है। तो राज सत्ता की पनाह जिनको है, हम चाहते हो सारे लोग जेल में जाएं, लेकिन उनके जेल में जाने के बाद समाज के अंदर ये फासिस्ट कल्चर जो पनपा है, उसको हमारी लिबरल प्रोग्रेसिव कंटेंट के द्वारा हमको जो काउंटर करना है, ये बहुत बड़ा टास्क है। ये टास्क बहुत ही वाइटल है और मैं मानता हूँ जिया साहब की ये किताब उसी दिशा में एक कदम है। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Mr. Mewani.
I would first like to congratulate Zia Sahab for having written this book, which I feel is very important at the present time in this country. We have all been reading about all these instances of mob lynching, etc. in the media, but it's very, very important to put them all together and compile them with proper documentation so that they remain as a record for anybody and for posterity. What we have been witnessing is, as Jignesh said, something really, really horrible and terrible, which is not merely this kind of mob lynching which Zia Sahab in his book says. It's another form of rioting. It's a one-sided kind of rioting. But what we are witnessing is firstly a complete collapse of our police machinery, or rather a collaboration of the police machinery with this mob lynching and with the perpetrators of this of these heinous crimes. Absolutely unimaginable, the kind of depravity and the kind of grotesque nature of these crimes. But we are also witnessing at another level, which also Jignesh pointed out, a kind of normalizing of these heinous crimes and the depravity which accompanies these heinous crimes among substantial sections of our society. Unfortunately, I mean, this is an unfortunate fact that we have to face, that all this is made possible because of substantial sections of our society, especially those who are in power today, coming to feel and believe that this is all right. This can be tolerated. This can be tolerated because it is being perpetrated on Dalits, Muslims, Adivasis, who in their minds do not count as humans at all. And all this is facilitated by there is a lynch mob on the social media also. There is a lynch mob on the streets, and there is a lynch mob in the media, and especially in the social media. And this lynch mob, unfortunately, is all kind of ultimately shepherded by the Prime Minister himself. If you've read that book, I Am a Troll by Swati Chaturvedi, you will realize, and those of you who have not read this book, I advise you to pick up that book and read it, and then you will realize how this lynch mob is managed and controlled. There is a BJP IT cell which has now about 2,000 people who are paid 50,000 rupees a month, whose job is to create 10, 20, 30, 50 accounts and spread firstly all kinds of hateful, fake news, false information about Muslims, about Dalits, etc. through the social media, and just spread that through WhatsApp, through Twitter, through Facebook, etc. And ultimately this whole social media lynch mob is ultimately controlled by the Prime Minister himself. And that is why you find that all the major members of this social media lynch mob are all followed and feted by the Prime Minister. He calls them to his residence, to the Prime Minister's residence, has tea with them, gets photographs taken with them, and they are allowed to put those photographs on their social media page and say, proud to be followed by Mr. Modi. So, I don't think that we have ever seen a head of a government participating in this kind of absolutely heinous, vulgar, vile lynch mob on the social media, which abuses, threatens women with rape, threatens other people with murder, and absolutely vile abuses, and spreading hateful and false stories. So this is a poison that has been injected into our society, which Jignesh pointed out. And of course, I have no doubt that this government will go out in another 3 months. We will be rid of this government in another 3 months. I have absolutely no doubt of that. But the challenge would come after that. The real challenge would come after that. And the challenge would be, firstly, of course, for the alternative government which comes to run in at least a half credible manner with some kind of program, and that is why we had produced this document which called Reclaiming the Republic, which contains an agenda which is required to reclaim our republic, and in this one section deals with this issue of inclusion and justice for vulnerable populations, in which we have made several recommendations as to what needs to be done regarding this kind of these kind of things that are happening, these attacks on Dalits, Muslims and other vulnerable sections of our population. We also would have to, quite apart from making changes in law, policy and institutions to deal with this, which is what we have suggested here, but we need a massive civil society effort to somehow remove this poison that has been injected into our society. Because a lot of people, unfortunately, have ingested this communal poison. It's not merely a communal poison, it's also a kind of desensitization of their humanity itself. So this has to be resensitized. This communal poison which has been spread into our society, this has to be removed. For that, a huge amount of effort would be required. We have been saying, I have been saying for a long time that we need to have our own IT cells which spread true news about the benefits of a diverse society, about the benefits of religious engagement in our society, how cultures, different religious cultures have benefited from each other in our society, and why India is a unique country because of our religious and cultural diversity. All those things would have to be done, in which civil society would have to play a major role, and I hope that that is something which can be done after we get rid of this government. I mean, should be started immediately, but I am saying that hopefully we'll be rid of this government, and hopefully all that process of reclaiming our republic and repairing our institutions, reclaiming our, getting rid of many of these draconian laws like UAPA, AFSFA, NSA, etc., all that will begin. Thank you very much. I congratulate Riya Saab for this magnificent effort to put together these accounts in this book.
Thank you, Prashant ji.
बहुत शुक्रिया। बाकी साथियों की तरह ही मैं ज़िया सलाम साहब को इस किताब के लिए शुक्रिया अदा करना चाहता हूँ, मुबारकबाद नहीं, क्योंकि ये इस तरह की किताब का लिखा जाना, जैसे पहले जिग्नेश ने कहा और फिर प्रशांत ने कहा, ज़रूरी था। ये काफ़ी तकलीफ़देह काम है और लिखते वक्त जो लेखक है वो मुबारकबाद नहीं चाहता है। जैसा खुद ज़िया साहब ने कहा कि ये नहीं चाहते कि इस तरह की कोई और किताब लिखने की ज़रूरत पेश आए और कोई मजबूरी हो। मैं अक्सर इस तरह की किताबों को जब देखता हूँ तो लिखने वाले की मुश्किल के बारे में सोचता हूँ कि क्या हम इस तरह लिखें कि आपके दिल पिघल जाए। हम कैसे लिखें? जो वाक़यात हैं उनको जब हम दर्ज करें तो कैसे दर्ज करें, और दर्ज करने का मकसद क्या हो? क्या मकसद ये है कि आपके भीतर ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा दर्द उमड़े और भावनाएं उमड़ें? क्या मकसद ये हो? और क्या इस वजह से हमारी पूरी ज़ुबान जो दर्ज करने की ज़ुबान है, वो ज़ुबान एक दूसरे किस्म से शायराना ज़ुबान हो, जिसमें हम मेटाफर्स खोजते हैं और सिमिलीज खोजते हैं और अल्फाज की जो सीधी ताकत होती है, हमें लगता है कि वो शायद काम ना कर रही हो, हम जो बतलाना चाहते हैं उस पर। तो ये मुश्किल है और ज़िया साहब को लिखते वक्त ये मुश्किल आई होगी, लेकिन उन्होंने इन सबको दर्ज किया, एक दिल में हमारे सामने रखा, और ये इसलिए कि हम सब जो अखबारों में और दूसरी जगह इनको पढ़ते रहे हैं पिछले 5 सालों में, खासकर 4.5 साल में, हम आगे भी इनको पढ़ते रह सकें। पिछले 5 सालों में बहुत सारी चीज़ें हिंदुस्तान में जुड़ी हैं, उनमें कुछ लफ्ज़ भी जुड़े हैं, कुछ टर्म भी जुड़े हैं। उनमें एक टर्म है लिंचिंग, जो पहले भी डिक्शनरी में, लुगत में, शब्दकोश में मौजूद था, लेकिन हमने ये नहीं सोचा था कि हिंदुस्तान के एक स्वभाव के रूप में हम किसी समय इस शब्द का इस्तेमाल करना शुरू करेंगे, और ये हमारे रोज़ाना की बातचीत में शामिल हो जाएगा। ये अपवाद भी नहीं रहेगा, हम रोज़ इसको इस्तेमाल करना शुरू करेंगे। इसका हमको एहसास नहीं था, लेकिन यह हो गया पिछले 5 वर्ष में। ये कहा जाता है और ठीक है कि, और ये बहुत दिलचस्प है कि जिनको इसमें शामिल कहा जाता है वो अंग्रेज़ी नहीं जानते हैं, लेकिन उसके लिए हमारे पास लफ्ज़, हमारे हिंदुस्तानी ज़बानों में लिंचिंग जैसा लफ्ज़ नहीं है। कुछ लोग इसको इस तरह से पेश करते हैं कि देखिए हमारी संस्कृति में यह चीज़ नहीं थी, इसलिए लिंचिंग जैसा शब्द हम नहीं बना पाए, इसलिए हम पीट कर मारना कहते हैं। लेकिन पीट कर मारना उस चीज़ को जाहिर नहीं करता जो लिंचिंग है। दूसरी बात ये कही जाती रही है और ये सच है कि लिंचिंग या पीट कर मारने की शिकार सिर्फ मुसलमान नहीं हैं, दलित भी रहे हैं। दूसरी किस्म की लिंचिंग्स भी होती रही हैं, लेकिन दोनों में एक फ़र्क है, और वो कितना ही तकलीफदेह फ़र्क क्यों ना हो और क्यों राजनीतिक रूप से उसको कहना कितना ही मुश्किल क्यों ना हो, लेकिन कहा जाना चाहिए, वो ये कि दलित इस लिंचिंग का विरोध कर सकते हैं, मुसलमान मुसलमान की तरह इस लिंचिंग का विरोध नहीं कर सकते। एक दलित बंद हो सकता है भारत में, इसका नतीजा भले ही दलितों को भोगना पड़ा हो, लेकिन मुसलमान कोई भारत बंद नहीं कर सकते, ये मुमकिन नहीं है। इसलिए दलितों को विरोध का जो मौका मौजूद है, जो अपने आप में बहुत बड़ी चीज़ है, वो मौका मुसलमानों को मौजूद नहीं है, क्योंकि उनको ये बतलाया जाता है कि लिंचिंग सिर्फ आपकी नहीं हो रही है, दलितों की भी हो रही है। इसलिए आप सिर्फ अपनी बात न करें, आप दूसरों की बात भी करें, और अगर आप दूसरों की बात नहीं करते हैं तो ये एक जायज़ तजुर्बा नहीं रहता है, इसमें लोग शिरकत नहीं कर सकते हैं, एक साझा चीज़ नहीं हो सकती है, ये एक मुश्किल है। और इस वजह से ये जो साझेदारी है, जो साझेदारी नाइंसाफ़ी की साझेदारी है, वो पिछले 5 सालों में मुश्किल से मुश्किल तर होती चली गई। राजनीतिक जब ये एक तरह की शैतानियत, या जिसे हम रैडिकल एविल कहते हैं, ये रैडिकल एविल, इस रैडिकल एविल के साथ हमारा रहना कुछ ज़्यादा वक्त का हो जाता है, तो हमारे समाज की दूसरी जवाब देने वाली जो ताकतें होती हैं वो कमज़ोर पड़ जाती हैं और ख़त्म हो जाती हैं। और उनका एक उदाहरण यह है कि मध्य प्रदेश और राजस्थान में सरकारों के बदल जाने के बाद अभी जब हम बात कर रहे हैं, तो हम ये जानते हैं कि खंडवा में और इंदौर के इलाके में 3 मुसलमानों को राष्ट्रीय सुरक्षा कानून के अंतर्गत बंद किया गया है, ठीक इसी आरोप में। और उसके ठीक 2 दिन बाद फिर 2 मुसलमानों को राष्ट्रीय सुरक्षा कानून लगाया गया है। और राजस्थान में नई सरकार के आने के बाद भी सगीर खान को भीड़ ने उसी तरह पीटा है जैसे पहेलू खान को पीटा था। वो उनका नसीब है, वो मारे नहीं गए, सगीर जिंदा है। तो इसलिए मैं जिनको रिस्पॉन्सेस कह रहा था, जो रिस्पॉन्सेस होते हैं वो इतने कमज़ोर हो जाते हैं और नाकाम हो जाते हैं कि सरकारों के बदल जाने के बाद भी उनको फिर से जगाना और उनको सक्रिय करना बहुत ही मुश्किल हो जाता है। खुद राजनीतिक दल, और ये बहुत दिलचस्प है कि वे इससे डरते हैं कि अगर हमने राष्ट्रीय सुरक्षा कानून वापस लेने का ऐलान किया तो इससे हो सकता है हिंदुओं में हमारे खिलाफ एक पूरी भावना भड़काई जा सकती है। तो हम अब ऐसी हालत में पहुंच गए हैं जहां हिंदुओं के बारे में, हिंदुओं के संवेदनशील तरीके से और विवेकपूर्ण तरीके से सोचने की ताकत के बारे में शक पैदा हो गया कि वो सोच सकते हैं कि नहीं। और मुझे अक्सर, हालांकि वो उदाहरण कई लोग कहते हैं गलत है, तुलना गलत है, लेकिन ये याद आता है कि जर्मनी में और दूसरे मुल्कों में जब यहूदियों को घेटोज में ले जाने के लिए मार्च कराया जाता था, तो सड़क के दोनों तरफ जर्मन खड़े होकर तालियां बजाया करते थे और फिक्रे कसा करते थे। तो ये ऐसा नहीं है कि ये सिर्फ एसएस के लोगों ने किया, ऐसा नहीं है कि हिटलर की फौज ने किया, बल्कि इसमें जर्मन जनता ने और यूरोप की जनता ने आगे बढ़ चढ़कर हिस्सेदारी की। और इस वजह से जर्मनी को एक बहुत बड़ी मुहिम चलानी पड़ी उसके बाद। लेकिन अभी हमें दिखलाई पड़ रहा है 70 सालों के बाद कि फिर जर्मनी वहीं पर है जहां यहूदियों पर और अप्रवासियों पर लगातार हमले हो रहे हैं। तो हम आज इस किताब के बहाने एक दूसरे से बातचीत करने के लिए इकट्ठा हैं और हमारे साथ हमारे 2 साथी हैं, डॉक्टर गजाला और जमील, और जॉन दयाल साहब, मैं पहले दरख्वास्त करूँगा गजाला से कि वे अपनी बात करें।
Before we begin the panel discussion, I'll seek your pardon. I'll just try to express my gratitude to Mr. Jignesh Mewani for being with us. He has another commitment, and I guess he's already a bit behind time for that. So I'll be just expressing my thanks to you for being here, for taking time out, and for giving Lynch Files and all of us priority. Thank you.
जाते जाते इतना कहता जाऊंगा कि जैसे एमपी में भी एनएसए लगा, ऐसे कर्नाटका में कांग्रेस और जेडीएस की सरकार ने उनको चार्जशीट किया है और प्रोवोकेटिव स्पीच अगेंस्ट मोदी।
Publication of a book and its book release is usually supposed to be a celebratory occasion for the author. But as has been said earlier, the nature of this book stops us from really celebrating in a particular way. But it is definitely, I read this book as an academician, as a teacher, and as a Muslim. Usually what happens in books like this is that they are written in English and they are written about Muslims. Usual books about Muslims are written for non-Muslim readers, which seek to inform the larger public about Muslim issues or the Muslim situation or the Muslim questions. And it is often not considered that there will be Muslim readers as well. Even though they are not usually the target audience or the readers, or maybe the publishers do not think of them as easy existing markets, but they read. And one of the things that struck me first when I read this book, as a social worker, my training is in the discipline of social work, and as a social worker I often associate with civil society organizations, and I've been part of some fact-finding groups and visits. Especially in one of the cases mentioned in this book pertaining to Hapur last year, I was part of a team which went and did some fact-finding, and this was right before police actually started taking an action. So we were there just in a matter of within a couple of days of the actual incident taking place. So, and I've been following these cases very closely. This book was, in a way, reliving through the trauma of interacting with the victims and their families, survivors and their families. And the painful reminder of the social characteristics of the victims and where they come from. Often Muslim backwardness is one of the issues that is foregrounded. Muslim appeasement is another issue that is often foregrounded, and these are the terms of discourses: Muslim poverty, Muslim powerlessness, etc., etc. These are foregrounded. But the trauma of violence, and after the violent act has actually taken place, the kind of trauma that it leaves not only individuals who have borne that trauma, but the families, but also the wider community of people who may not have actually had any family member bear the trauma of that violence, also shares that trauma in various different ways. Apurvanand sir actually gestured in this direction when he said about the impossibility of protest or any kind of meaningful protest by Muslims. This also probably leads to the fact that because there is nobody who speaks up and says this happened to us, and we do not want to let it continue and happen to us again and again and again, perhaps it becomes easier for the others within the society to unsee it. And in a way, even those people who do not die suffer from a kind of social death. I don't want to sound alarmist, but this is probably the simile that I'm fishing for, and this is what I found when I fished for this kind of feeling. So what this book does for me is actually bear witness to these feelings as well, of all those people who sat in their houses, read in newspapers, felt helpless, knew that this could be them, of all the conversations around Bakrid when we told our father-in-law, who was coming from Saharanpur and was intent on bringing some meat from Saharanpur, to dissuade family members from bringing gifts of food for other family members, that it could actually be potentially fatal for them and painful for the rest of the family. So it was very important for me to read the book, to relive this trauma, because it is also, the narratives are also therapeutic. They're therapeutic because they bear witness. They're therapeutic because they show us some pattern. They're therapeutic because they give us certain agency in order to see what is really happening to us and maybe gather some resources as to what can one do about it. In that sense, this bearing witness and these therapeutic narratives are very important for me. I think also as an academician, I suffered from a very slight tinge of envy for the swiftness with which journalists can capture realities as they happen around them, write the narratives, bring them to a certain kind of closure and ready them for publication. I think one of the sort of disadvantages or handicaps that certain career academicians like me suffer from is to sit on these kind of writings and ruminate over them and find all kinds of, because there are conventions about referencing and conventions about sources, and we wait for other people to write. So I guess this book will also provide the foundation for many people like me to build upon it further and strengthen this discourse and this voice that Salam Saab has raised. Having said this, I think there are 2-3 things that I want to raise which I learned from this book and which probably have not been said explicitly in the book. And although Salam Saab has said that he doesn't want to write a sequel of it, but perhaps let's not think of it as a sequel, let's think of it as different books. But maybe, and even books written by other people. But one of the things, again, that Apurvanand sir has gestured towards is about whether lynchings really started with akhlaq, whether this is something new that is happening in India or, indeed elsewhere in the world. I couldn't help thinking that Graham Steins and his 2 young children should have had also a place in a book like this, or perhaps there are so many known and unknown victims who have been victims of similar crimes. The other thing that has been raised by other speakers is this idea about spectatorship or lynching as a spectacle. This is also not new, and has been mentioned in the example of Nazi Germany. Lynching, the word where it has actually come from in America, the new technologies of image taking, cameras, etc., were explicitly used to take really graphic pictures of African American slaves who were lynched to death, and gruesome deaths were recorded on film. They were reproduced as postcards. People used to buy them as souvenirs and keep them. Not only were these images were kept as souvenirs, but dismembered parts of the bodies of those who were lynched were also kept and circulated as souvenirs. It is perhaps something that doesn't need to be said, that human beings and human civilizations have earlier also committed unspeakable crimes for which, whether their societies have words or do not have words in the languages, it doesn't matter. The unspeakable has been done. During the Muzaffarnagar violence and right after it, when I used to visit some of the victims there, they used to often talk about samjhauta kar lenge, hawa hi aisi thi. And I think Indians kind of excel in beating around the bush and not calling things by their name. And one of the reasons why injustice prevails at such wide level, despite us being a thriving, functioning democracy, electoral democracy, let me say that, is because we cannot be bothered to call things by their name. We also have not only habit of, a cow is not the only being that we have infused with divinity, but we also infuse various other things with divinity. One of the things that I wish this book had also done in tracing the history of this sort of issue of cow militia or cattle slaughter and cow slaughter particularly, is the way cow has actually entered the Constitution of India itself. Often we think of the Constitution as this holy book into which if we pose our faith completely, then somehow we will be saved. Because we have learned, and also especially Muslims have learned, that, and it's a good thing that we need to learn the language of citizenship and constitutionalism, etc. But to infuse the Constitution as a document that has no faults and is a document which is perfect, is something of a misleading assessment of the Constitution of India. It is but a document which is made of compromises that confronted the forefathers or the builders of the Constitution of the Republic. The kind of modern scientific language that is used in talking about cattle slaughter and the management of cattle in India is something that was discussed quite deeply in the Constitutional Assembly debates. And in fact, the minority and the Muslim members of the Constitutional Assembly debates are reputed to have said that if you want to ban cow slaughter, then by all means go ahead and ban it. But do not disguise it in this language of scientific management of cattle and so on. And so, yet another example of not calling a thing by its name. What these cases documented in the book also show us is the futility of evidence, the way the police works, whether evidence exists or it does not exist, the way police goes about collecting evidence, the way courts actually, and especially the lower courts, disregard all evidence and focus on the identities of the people who are standing in front of the court, is also something that is quite evident in this book. And the way law enforcement agencies in our country have a habit of distributing clean chits to perpetrators of crime is another thing. I think all of us love clean narratives, but sometimes clean narratives and narratives that are also pertaining to the romanticization of Nehruvian ideas of secularism are something that we need to probably begin to confront at this moment of time. When was it that in India there was no communal violence and communal hatred? To idealize a time when there was no such feeling that was expressed, that there was no violence, that would perhaps be a travesty. Of course, there are shared traditions, there was living together, but there was also this. So to have this kind of linear narrative instead of a dialectical narrative where this existed and that also existed, and today also if injustice prevails, then the quest for justice also goes on, the fight for justice also goes on. So I think these are the kind of questions that this book raised in my mind, and I really feel and I think many generations of researchers and historians will find this book an amazing resource. And although it is probably now customary not to thank Salam Saab for writing this, but I will still thank him for writing this book. Thank you so much.
शुक्रिया गजाला जान दयाल साहब.
Ghazala, I would have willingly forfeited my 10 minutes for you. But they've listed my name and I must speak. Zia introducing me has made me 150 years old. So let me bank on that elephantine memory. Spanning 50 years in journalism and having visited most, if not all, of the households where one or two men in the prime of the youth were lynched in the last 2 years. Also, there's one Muslim woman, one, well, allegedly Hindu man. I am neither. Until recently, I was not even a Christian, but I suppose John does make me one. This is not a book for Muslims. It's a book on India to be read by non-Muslims. It's a mirror, not a recounting. I say that having written something like this with Hashmanda last year. 3 quick capsules. A month ago, I was in Saharanpur and UP when it touches Uttarakhand. We were visiting 3 people, 2 lynchings, 1 false encounter. We went to the widow of the false encounter. She hadn't got, among many other things, the death certificate of her husband. So the lawyer accompanying Harsh said, let's all go to the Tehsil office and get this poor widow her husband's death certificate so she can go about fighting the rest of the case. I didn't go in. I was in the car. Harsh and the lawyer went in. And this is from these 2. They asked the Tehsildar, a gazetted officer, Mohtarma ka Khavind ka death certificate दे दीजिए. ये विधवा है. The Tehsildar turns to them. सोनिया गांधी भी तो विधवा है. हर विधवा का सर्टिफिकेट देते फिर हम. Exact quote, unquote. She's yet to get her death, her husband's death certificate. The second thing we discovered from our spanning of lynchings from Assam through Bengal, Jharkhand, Haryana, UP, Mangalore of all places, Rajasthan again and again and again, were, apart from the impunity and the complicity, almost an adjunct counter cases on all the victims' male family members. So instead of fighting for justice for the dear departed, they were fighting to save the living, lest they lose him to the law, having lost the other to the mob. How many are these encounters? UP, 1,000, who knows? Haryana, the small Mewat, how many of them? For every lynching, 10 to 20. And sometimes the Gaurakshak was the cop. If they couldn't catch, they would stop a carload or truckload of cattle and say these people fire at us, shoot 2 of them, and then file counter cases against the survival, saying the cattle were in bad shape, and the new act is under the Protection of Animal Rights Act. The RSPCA we used to call it when we were young. That was the third. The third one was mentioned in passing, the morbidity of somebody filming it. And that is just, all of you know, the sheep, Nupur photographs, records things, takes a very steady hand. They were very steady hands. In one case in Rajasthan, it was the 14-year-old nephew of the man who was called a stranger, he never knew, just one Muslim, called him over, killed him, and the 14-year-old nephew filmed it as if he was a professional from Bombay. All of the 10 minutes of the thing. And then we explore. And now we were told by experts there, and they showed it to us on their phones, you speak into the phone, fala fala shot de do, and the shot comes up. Practically a how to kill manual continue. But that is morbidity 1. Morbidity 2 is that this was again in Saharanpur last 2 weeks ago. How the victim's wife and son were showing us the last gasp. You mentioned it to somebody. The last gasp. Kahan pe beta, kahan gaya, wo kahan gaya? On the touch screen of the iPad. Looking at the last thing, blowing it up, showing it to us. What goes into their mind? They don't talk about it. But I have come here to speak as a word of caution. This is a caution to my countrymen. What do I see cutting across communities? I see it in Sikhs, I see it in Christians, and I see it in the vast Hindu masses, all sections. It is a rampant, raging, furious Islamophobia. It's hot, it's incandescent, absolutely, violently, brilliantly alive. Be warned of that. I also see cow, you said, is not the only deity. The army is the deity, the new goddess or the god. So in your Islamophobia, you have a worshipping of the army, absolutely raving, lunatic worshipping. Got nothing with APSA or counter. The army can do wrong, but the army for them can do no wrong. And the third is warmongering. You don't notice it because it slips past you. It's there on TV, it's there in the media, it is there on the analysis of people that we thought were okay. And it's now discovered that they are not okay. And you, please, those of you who are historians, social activists, sociologists, and a very famous sociologist is here. What does it mean? Worshipping the army, warmongering, and a total hatred towards one identifiable community. You don't have to go to Germany for that. That is, my dear friends, the problem. Releasing a book of mine last year, Fali Nariman repeated something he had told the National Commission of Minorities in its annual oration. He told them, Hinduism has changed. It has changed. Fali Nariman said, he's a jurist, he said it on record, it is there, quotable, so I will not be sued. And that is the last layer of the caution that I built for you. Governments will come, governments will go, and the ideal coalition possibly is between the Congress and the BJP, there's so much they share, so much they hold dear. Among them using the NSA and building gaushalas in schools. But to purge it, the new government, the new environment, the new children in the schools, of all that they have been taught, all they have seen, all they have photographed themselves, copied and sent on WhatsApp, is going to take something that, I don't know, the new mothers, the new teachers will have to invent a new soap to cleanse their filthy tongues. I would like to thank you and congratulate you for this. Even now, it still takes courage to document these things. Thank you.
हमारे पास 10 मिनट हैं। अगर आपके सवाल हों वक्ताओं से और लोगों से जी माइक्रोफोन
Yeah, good evening. My question is based on two parts. The first is the term may be
10 मिनट
used.
के एक ही सवाल पूछो।
हाँ एक सवाल
जब हम word mob lynching use करते हैं, so as Jignesh sir also indicated, कि the use of mob lynching in itself deviates and dilutes the issue of the planned and decided killing and the murder itself. And after following the newspaper, I realized that as soon as we use the word mob lynching, section 153A of the Indian Penal Code is used for booking them, which is punishable by 3 to 5 years. Whereas these kind of planned murder should be booked under section 302 or something, where they should be punishable by death sentence. So how does the usage of word mob lynching affect the case, and can it be changed by changing different terminology and different sections? Thank you.
एक आध और सवाल आना।
जिया साहब, इस किताब के हवाले से मैं जानना चाहूँगा, इसका आइडिया आपके जहन में कब और कैसे आया? कोई एक पर्टिकुलर इंस्टेंस था जो जिसने आपको ट्रिगर करा इसके लिए? देयर आर सीरीज ऑफ लिंचिंग, लेकिन कोई एक खास वाकया जिसने आपको झकझोरा और कहा कि आप कुछ लिखना चाहिए इसके?
कुछ और सवाल? हाँ, पहले यहाँ फिर आप।
मैं ये पूछना चाहता हूँ कि ये जो काउंटर नैरेटिव की हम लोग बातें करते हैं, तो प्रेमचंद ने एक दफ़े लिखा था कि इतने सारे, जब भी हम कम्युनल हार्मनी का एग्जाम्पल देने लगते हैं तो नज़ीर को कोट करते हैं, वगैरह वगैरह सबको कोट करते रहते हैं, लेकिन जो हिंदी राइटर्स हैं उन्होंने तो खैर इसलिए लिखा था करबला फाइनली, बट देयर इज़ वेरी लिटिल रिटन about Islam, about the aspects of that. So I just want to know whether the counter narrative should contain, what should it contain exactly?
मेरा एक सवाल है जिया सलाम साहब से, चूँकि ये लिंचिंग फाइल्स है और मुझे लगता है कि आने वाले दिनों में जो आपको क्या, मुझे लगता है यहाँ पे जितने भी लोग बैठे हुए हैं, मुस्तकबिल में भी लिंचिंग का सिलसिला बदस्तूर जारी रहेगा, और ये लिंचिंग कैसे रोका जाए, कौन रोकेगा? और जैसे कि उन्होंने कहा है कि कांग्रेस और बीजेपी में एक रिश्ता है, ख़ास रिश्ता है, और वो ख़ास रिश्ता वो दोनों एक साथ शेयर भी करते हैं, तो ना मुझे कांग्रेस से उम्मीद है कि लिंचिंग को रोक पाएगी और बीजेपी तो लिंचिंग को चला रही है। तो ऐसे में आप, और वो त्रिशूल और तलवार से लिंचिंग को चला रहे हैं, तो मुझे लगता है कि कलम की जो तहरीक है इसकी ताकत कहाँ तक है, और इसकी ताकत लिंचिंग को रोकने में कहाँ तक कामयाब हो पाएगी, यही मेरा सवाल है।
आखिरी पीछे
क्या वजह आपको लगती है कि इन केसेस के वेल डॉक्यूमेंटेड प्रूफ्स होने के बाद, वीडियोस भी होने के बाद, अदालत में जाके डिरेल हो जाते हैं, और जो अफेक्टेड फैमिलीज़ हैं उनके लिए कानूनन लड़ाई लड़ना बहुत मुश्किल हो गया है? ख़ास करके अगर आप जुनैद की फैमिली की बात करेंगे या आप पहलू खान की फैमिली की बात करेंगे, तो क्या आपको उसके रीज़न्स लगते हैं?
इस दौर में हम चाहेंगे कि पैनल से करके अगर जो भी पैनल
जैसे शुरू किया तो वैसे खत्म कर
तो नहीं उल्टा भी शुरू आप एक आपके लिए एक सवाल था तो
सर आपने सबसे आगे से सवाल कर रहा था कि इस किताब का ट्रिगर क्या था। मैंने मुख्तसर सा इसमें रेफरेंस दिया था अपने ओपनिंग रिमार्क में कि जब अखलाक की लिंचिंग हुई थी सितंबर 2015 में, तब जगह जगह पे उसका जिक्र हुआ था और हेडलाइन न्यूज़ बनी थी एंड वी वर ऑल शॉक्ड एंड एवरीथिंग। लेकिन पिछले साल जब जुलाई 2018 में रकबर की लिंचिंग हुई, सबकी नज़र से चीज़ गुजर गई मानो कि ऐसा हादसा हुआ ही नहीं। ये बिल्कुल उस तरीके का केस है जैसे मीडिया ने निर्भया का केस उठाया तो वी ऑल वर कंसर्न अबाउट द सेफ्टी ऑफ द गर्ल चाइल्ड एंड आवर गर्ल्स ऑन द रोड्स ऑफ दिल्ली। लेकिन उसके बाद रोज़ जितने भी बलात्कार के हादसे होते हैं वो अंदर के पेज में दबा दिए जाते हैं। Like rape is a new normal in our society, lynching has also become a normal thing in our society. So I didn't want that it should stay normal. A crime has to be said that it is a crime. So I thought I'll say lynching is a crime against humanity. As Sir also said, not against one particular religion. It is against the rest, but yes, most of the victims of lynching are Muslims. And I won't shy away from saying that. You had asked in terms of a law. I guess I've answered your question in the chapter on Supreme Court's ruling on lynching in the book. सर देखिए कलम की तहरीक कहाँ तक कामयाब होती है, इसकी एक सिंपल बात है कि and I am a believer and I say after Prophet Muhammad there will not be another messenger. So all of us in this room are messengers of truth. We all have to take this message forward to larger people, to talk of the pain of the people who have died and the pain of the families which have suffered. And if Mr. Apurvanand will permit me, I'll read out a couple of paragraphs about how they went about killing Akhlaq. Because it was not a spontaneous outpouring or anger कि इसने गाय काटी हम इसका सर काटेंगे, ये वो बात नहीं थी। ये प्लान्ड कॉन्स्पिरेसी के साथ, मेडिटेशन के साथ मर्डर था। और अगर आप ध्यान देंगे अलवर की तरफ, हरियाणा की तरफ, राजस्थान की तरफ और वेस्टर्न उत्तर प्रदेश, जहाँ जहाँ पे लिंचिंग हुई है, लिंचिंग से पहले प्राइवेट आर्मी सेटअप करी जाती है। पीपल आर ट्रेन्ड to kill, and they are trained not to kill immediately but to inflict maximum torture on the victim. And this is one place where the killers derive sadistic pleasure out of the helplessness of the victim and they record it for posterity. We have to take this message forward so that posterity does not repeat the sins we have committed. So we have your permission?
मैं सिर्फ ये अर्ज कर रहा हूँ कि उससे हम ख़त्म करेंगे।
बहुत ही माफिक सवाल आपने पूछा और उससे यहाँ पर आप लिंच और फाइल के बीच में कॉमा लगा दीजिए, लिंच एंड फाइल। ज़्यादातर कलमें बिक चुकी हैं और मीडिया बिक चुका है। उस लड़की ने बताया था किस तरीके से ट्रोल आर्मीज मार्शल की जाती है, जनरलशिप की जाती है उनको आर्म किया जाता है, उनको पैसा दिया जाता है। कहाँ से ढूंढेंगे वो कलम और उतनी तादाद में वो कलम जो लिखे? कहाँ से ढूंढेंगे वो कागज़ जिस पर लिखा जाए, वो रसाला, वो किताबें कहाँ मिलेंगे? छापने वाले कहाँ मिलेंगे? पढ़ने वाले। ये हमको दिक्कत आ रही है। फेक न्यूज़ के ज़माने में सच्ची गहराई में कोई भी पत्रकार जाता है और सिर्फ मुसलमानों की बात नहीं है, सरदारों की बात नहीं है। अभी सरदारों के ऊपर एक कांड हुआ है, इमोशनल कांड और टेक्निकल कांड। कोई कहीं पे कोई डिस्कशन नहीं है। क्यों अकाली दल ने भाजपा को वार्निंग दी, किस तरीके से दूसरे के मज़हब में दखल कर रहे थे। उसको रिकॉर्ड करना, उसको नशर करना, उसके ऊपर डिस्कशन करना, एडिटोरियल लिखना, वो माहौल नहीं रहा है आज। और मैं 1969 में पत्रकार बना था, माहौल था, कागज़ में भी आप डिस्कस कर सकते थे, 20 साल पहले तक कर सकते थे, अब नहीं कर पा रहे हैं आप। आज टीवी पर आके भारत की डिफेंस मिनिस्टर बड़ी गुस्सा हो रही है हिंदू अखबार के ऊपर, इनके अखबार के ऊपर, कि वो राम की कहानी छाप रहे हैं और भारत के रक्षा मंत्री की बात नहीं सुनना मांगती है। उनसे हम पूछते हैं, आप बकवास करते हैं, आपके बाका पूरे चैनल बकवास करते हैं, कभी हमारी बात सुनते हैं क्या? जो आप हक अपने लिए मांग रही हैं कि हमारी भी बात सुनी जाए, बाकी को देने के लिए आप तैयार है क्या? ना FIR में लिखी जाती है बात घायल की। FIR में वो बोल रही है, विधवा बोल रही है, और वीडियो बोल रहा है कौन कौन थे। वहाँ पे लिखा जाता है मॉब, वहाँ पे लिखा जाता है पीपल एंड पर्सन्स अननोन। क्या केस बनेगा? 153 का तो बनेगा। अगर एक लिख देते श्री शंकर सिंह वगैरह कहने वाला था गलती से, शंकर सिंह राठौड़, हम पहचानते हैं, तो उसके खिलाफ तो 300 तो लगाना ही पड़ता। ये माहौल में पत्रकार क्या करेगा? और मेरा ख्याल है अभी भी कुछ पत्रकार गुर्दा रखते हैं। हमको खबरें कहाँ से आती है? उसी पत्रकार से। बाकी छानबीन के जो एक थोड़ा सा बीच निकल जाता है, उसके सहारे हम लोग आगे बढ़ते हैं। मगर मैं फिर अपनी बात को करूँगा कि हमारे पास एक कॉशन है। ये गाय का मसला नहीं है, ये लिंचिंग आप लोगों ने ठीक कहा, वो होती रहती है, होती भी रहेगी। यहाँ पर हमारे देश की लिंचिंग ना हो जाए, ये हमको खतरा दिखता है। और उसका जो मॉब है बहुत बड़ा है, संघ परिवार, ये छोटे छोटे तब कस्बों के मॉब से बहुत ज़्यादा बड़ा है। जहाँ पे गांधी की लाश को, या गांधी की लाश की तस्वीर की फोटोग्राफ की पेंटिंग को जो गोली मारने की हिम्मत कर सकते हैं, कागज कर सकते हैं, क्या
I would like to maybe address your question, sir. Counter narrative. In my opinion, and which obviously fallible, might be wrong, I think one of the problems that has perpetuated the situation and the problems that we find ourselves deep in today is the discourse that somehow this whole issue of communalism is conflict between two religions, and we've been trying to find answers in the problem of religion. Either we say religion is the root of all problem, or we say, well, find stories from religion which talk about, living together, etc., etc. I think the counter narrative will not come from stories from within religion or within Islam, even how Islam is a humanist religion, or how Islam is not this, not that, not fundamentalist, not the way it is caricatured in the Islamophobic narrative. The counter narrative will actually come from knowing the true concentration of power that we are faced with today. One is capitalism and the other is the modern nation state. It is actually the religion coming to the aid of the project of nation building. In the entire South Asia, I mean, even if you don't go away to the entire world and the history of the world, if you look at South Asia, which religion will you not find in some South Asian nation state in majority and behaving exactly in the same manner that another majority in another nation state in South Asia is? So even Buddhism, for that matter, which is considered stereotypically the religion of peace like no other religion, it's fashionable to have those kind of narratives. Look at what Buddhist majorities are doing in Myanmar and Sri Lanka, for example. So it is my firm belief that it is not blaming religion or looking for humanist or bad or good, narratives from within religion that will solve this problem. The counter narrative lies in what, for example, Jignesh Mehani has been doing or Umar Khalid has been doing. They're not coming from a point of view of religion and what is good in religion and what is bad in particular religions. They're coming from a sharp and scathing criticism of capitalism and the way nation state is being behaved. That is.
माफ़ कीजिएगा, मैं और सवाल नहीं ले पाऊँगा क्योंकि जो आयोजक हैं उनके पास ये हॉल बस 5-7 मिनट और है। मैं सिर्फ ये कहना चाहता हूँ, गज़ाला ने ये कहा कि जिस तरह मज़हब राष्ट्रों के बनने में इस्तेमाल किए जा रहे हैं या उनकी मदद में सामने आ रहे हैं, यह मसला उससे जुड़ा हुआ है और इसलिए हमें जवाब इसमें नहीं खोजना चाहिए कि हम कहानियाँ कह पा रहे हैं या नहीं जो मज़हबों की अच्छी कहानियाँ हैं और उनके अच्छे पक्ष को सामने लाती हैं, ताकि ये मसला उनका है ही नहीं। ये मसला मज़हब के राष्ट्र निर्माण में उपयोग का मसला है। लेकिन दूसरी बात यह भी है और इस पर भी हम लोगों को विचार करना चाहिए कि राष्ट्र के बारे में विचार करने का या राष्ट्र के बारे में कहानी कहने का जिम्मा हमने किनके हाथों में छोड़ दिया है। और हमने शायद एक वक्त आकर यह मान लिया कि ये पूरे राष्ट्र की अवधारणा पुरानी पड़ चुकी है और हम नए दौर में पहुंच गए हैं और इसलिए हमें दूसरी बातें करनी चाहिए। तो लेकिन राष्ट्र बन रहा, राष्ट्र बनने राष्ट्र एक तरह का अगर समझौता है अलग अलग समुदायों के भी, तो वो समझौते अपने तनावों के साथ हो रहे थे और हमने उस किस्से को कहने की कोशिश नहीं की और उसमें हम शामिल नहीं हुए, इसलिए वो किस्सा फिर दूसरे लोग कह रहे हैं और जिस तरह से कह रहे हैं उसका नतीजा वह है जिसके चलते हम लोग यहाँ बैठे हुए हैं। तो हमें इस पर भी विचार करना पड़ेगा कि ये सिर्फ हमारी इच्छा से नहीं है कि राष्ट्र नामक चीज़ गायब हो जाएगी, क्योंकि वो एक हकीकत है और सवाल ये है कि वो बनेगा कैसे और उसके लिए हमारे पास कोई दूसरा आधार है या नहीं, इस सवाल का जवाब हमें देना पड़ेगा। ज़िया साहब की किताब से वह हिस्सा जो वे पढ़ना चाहते हैं उससे हम आज की ये बातचीत ख़त्म करेंगे। ज़िया साहब।
थैंक यू सर। आप सवाल करने के अंश के बाद बता दो,
अगर नहीं रोक सकते हैं तो आप पूछें,
बाहर बता दो।
और अगर
बुनियादी है
बताइए।
देखिए हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं लिंच की, 70 सालों में ये स्टार्ट हुआ आज़ादी के टाइम पे, वहाँ भी लिंच राष्ट्र कहीं और आई। हम यहाँ इस देश में अपने देश में इस तरह की फाइल्स कितनी बनती रहेंगी और 70 साल में कितनी बनी है। क्या बुनियादी तौर पे नहीं देखते कि आज जिलों के नाम चेंज कर रहे हैं आप, हिंदुस्तान का नाम हिंदुस्तान नहीं कर पाए, ब्रिटिश इंडिया जो अंग्रेजों ने नाम दिया था वो इंडिया चल रहा है। आप ये बताइए हम बुनियादी तौर पे कितने लिंच फाइल्स बनेंगी आगे भी आने वाले सालों में। क्या सोल्यूशन ये नहीं है कि हम कहीं तरह से समझे मुस्लिम और हिंदू, हम देश को विभाजन 2 कास्टों में कर पाए, उर्दू जबान को हमने मजहबी जबान बना दिया जाति की। हम क्या ये नहीं कर सकते कि मेरा ब्रदर इन लॉ जो है या मेरा सन इन लॉ मुस्लिम है या मेरी डॉटर इन लॉ मुस्लिम है, एक जनरेशन और लगेगी केवल। इसका सोल्यूशन यही हो सकता है ना। मेरे घर में डॉटर इन लॉ मदर सिस्टर इन लॉ,
ये एक दूसरी बातचीत का
वो मैं कह रहा हूँ कि इसका अंत कहाँ होगा इन फाइल्स का।
सर मैं इसका उत्तर इसी अंश में मिल जाएगा आपको। It is about akhlaq from page 48 of the book, for those of you who have the book. As 45-year-old Jan Muhammad lifted the sheet of cloth face downwards from the body of his brother, he was horrified. 52-year-old Muhammad Akhlaq was not just murdered by neighborhood cow militia, but bruised, battered, and brutalized to death. His neighbors did to him what a wolf does to half-eaten deer in the jungle. One of Akhlaq's ears was completely chopped, the other half lopped off. One of his lips was slit, the other swollen stiff. He still bled from his nose, his face. His right eye was soaked in blood. His skin from the cheekbone to chin was peeled off from one side of the face.
His skull was fractured. His fractured left arm just hung in there. The nape of his neck was broken, as were his ribs, his wrists and ankles. Knees fractured, his legs just hung there like a piece of clothing from a hanger. There were marks of lynching, peeling of skin, slitting of flesh on his body from torso to toes. There was not a part of his body left intact, recalls his brother Jan Muhammad, nearly 3 years after Akhlaq met with a gory end. The passage of time did little to heal the wounds. Even today, the abuses of his attackers, including a man in a checked shirt, another in saffron shorts, yet another in a vest and drawers, as they surrounded Akhlaq, as he breathed his last, ring in his mind. The video spread online. It reached Akhlaq's sons too, and depending on where you stood on the side of the word spread, a cow killer was done to death by Gorakshaks in Dadri, or an innocent man lynched by cow terrorists. On that day, however, as Jan Muhammad mustered up courage to give his brother a ceremonial ghusl before the namaz-e-janazah, both Jan Muhammad and his younger brother went into a shiver. Their hands trembled as they tried to clean the badly bruised and bleeding body of their brother. Somehow the ghusl with lukewarm water, in which the leaves of a neem tree were sprinkled, was done. But it was not easy. Splashing a tumbler of water over the right shoulder, then the left, was a painful exercise. The body, laid on a wooden plank for bathing, creaked as the male family members sought to move from one side to the other for cleaning. From head to toe, somehow the body was cleaned, gently, lovingly, painfully. Along the way, tears of his brothers got mixed with the tumblers of water. Then the body was wrapped in a white shroud. This again was difficult, as there was little to hold the body together due to multiple fractures. If the mourners put their arm under the head, they discovered a hollow. If they put their arms around the waist, they could sense a broken bone. And some marks of blood just refused to be washed away, defiant to enter the grave with the body in whose veins it ran until a few hours earlier. As Akhlaq's brothers and son set out with the janazah, that is the funeral procession, the wails at home were muffled, weeping persistent. The women controlled their tears by covering their dupattas, covering their faces with dupattas. The men preferred to look at the ground, too shy to be seen with tears in their eyes. Akhlaq's daughter, Shaista, let out the loudest cry. A few weeks later, Union Minister Mahesh Sharma went to Dadri and wrapped the body of one of the accused of Akhlaq in the national tricolor to send him on his final journey. That says it all. Thank you very much.